such. Turns out the name of this beer is mispronunciation D double IPA, not D double IPA, just D IPA.
Right. Yeah.
But so there you go. Better watch your words when ordering another, as slurring will get you cut off. West Coast DIPA, with hops of Columbus, Simcoe, Sultana, and Mosaic, bittered with CO2 hop extract, bringing the IBU back. 8.5% ABV, 80-ish IBU, but who cares?
And that's from Sig in Tacoma.
This is from Sig, yeah.
Which was one of your 3 stops, and we'll get to that in a bit. Hey, welcome back to the Craft Beer Runner, where we're building a community of good people who like good beer. Today we have my friend Evan Williams. Evan, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jack. I am. What would I describe myself here? I am the 3rd oldest brother, family of 4, that collectively owns Flying Lion Brewing in Columbia City. And let's see what else. I'm an ultra marathoner for various groups. Seattle Running Club, being our local running club for trails.
It's funny because you were the previous vice president of the Seattle Running Club, and I'm the current vice president of the Seattle Running Club.
There we go. So let's look at this started.
Cheers that. And so Evan kind of embodies everything I created this channel for. So Evan's into homebrewing. He's been homebrewing since he was 22 years old. Brewery owner, the partner in a brewery here in Seattle, in South Seattle, and an ultra runner. So you were on Team USA last year, correct?
Yeah, that was great. It was unexpected. I went to go run the USATF 50K National Championships, which was formidable 50K. That was the race they picked to be the championship in California, and I was kind of hitting a point where the amount of training and intensity of training I was doing was dominating my life and energy in such a way that I had to have some more reward out of it, or just run less, because running has always been almost every mile of my life I've enjoyed, which is weird. Yeah, it's hard, but I also just there's an ecstatic just euphoria when I'm running. Somebody asked me if I ever get a runner's high. I go, I never don't get a runner's high. So this was actually starting to change going into that race, and so I went to it thinking, all right, I'm going to dial it back a little bit after this. I'm going to make sure I'm enjoying running, but before I do that, I will put myself as hard as I can all the way into the grave to try to before I back off, let's see where I can go. And I think going into this race thinking no matter what happens, this is going to be my last hard competition, was the peace, the mental freedom that I needed to go race well. And then I got 3rd place. So I had the best race of my life, and then I ended up on the U.S. Trail Team racing at World Championships.
That's
yeah, that was fun. There was a cool thing after, I should say, after the World Championship race, I went to a bar. You kind of walk around, and there's hundreds of runners walking around, and everybody's celebrating. So I ended up at this bar, and there was a Chilean team, the Italian team, French team. I think that's all I can really remember. But they have the most efficient system for moving beers through a crowded bar that I've ever seen. There was a table, a big table in the far corner, probably 50 runners hanging out, and kind of near the table standing there. And the bar was across not just runners, but fans of runners, and also the locals hanging out at this bar. This was a crammed bar, which was a really weird thing to think about in the pandemic now. It's
yeah.
we were sardines in sardines capital in Portugal. So, and here this beer, they put runners 6 feet apart, or wingspan apart, nothing to do with the pandemic, but just so you could reach, and they would order these 7 or 8 ounce beers in little cups from the bartender. He just kept the tap going, just pulls the tap, fills it, hands it, and it was just the fire bucket brigade down the line. And so you just pass it down. So this big long string of a dozen runners just spans the entire bar, and then you have a couple people at the table just setting them up. So got all these beers lined up, and then everybody, those 12 people filter their way back over there, and then you had one big huge toast and to commemorate how cool this experience was at the race. That was awesome.
Yeah. And besides owning, or being a partner, I should say, in Flying Lion, which in South Seattle, in Columbia City, is a great brewery, and they, in non-COVID times, do a 5-mile Monday night run.
I'm so sad to haven't been able to do that. This was Monday at 6 p.m. It's like my favorite hour of the week, every week.
But so besides those two things, the reason why I brought you on today is because you've done 3 projects during the quarantine lockdown since March that are fascinating. That involve beer, running, and activism, I should say as well, and which is great. And so you did 2 different beer runs where you were supporting local breweries, and then you also did a new project which happened in our primary a couple weeks ago, but also with the election coming up as well. I believe you're calling it the ballot box run. Is that correct?
Well, so yeah, to start with the last one. So 100K around Seattle. So I'm not doing that, but it's not the ballot box 100, but I'm trying to get as many people to run with the focus on voting, registration, and being informed about all of the candidates and issues as much as possible as a community effort. So it's a lot easier to run 100 kilometers if you get 100 people to each run 1 kilometer. It's a good math trick. Yeah, that's the recent push. For me personally, it's a way that I feel like I can make my voice heard and encourage other people to have their voices heard in methods that directly turn into our elected officials or our approved levies or whatever.
Right.
And so on. And I maintain that however you want to vote, more voting and more accurate voting representation will only build a stronger community.
So the other 2 projects you've worked on, and this is only my 3rd video on this channel, but I've mentioned in both video 1 and video 2 how important it is, not just during COVID, but throughout our society, to buy local, to support your local breweries or your local business, because that's how they stay in business. And you are a local brewery owner.
Yep.
And you did a run. Your first run, was that in April or March?
Oh, I think it was March.
So
End of March.
End of March. So about 2 weeks into lockdown, you did a hyper local. You did in Seattle.
Yep.
And it was 36 miles and 12 beers. Is it 12 breweries? Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, the concept was that I didn't understand. None of us really understood how devastating this was going to be to local economies. At the same time, like, you can't have a bar be open with tons of people in it. Like, it's just a public health disaster. It's not right. But there were these efforts being made by breweries to have to-go options. Either you bring your growler and it gets sanitized, or you get a crowler, or you stay in your car and the brewer comes out and hands your beer to you, or there's delivery options too. And so there was some confusion early on about what was still possible, and could people still support a local brewery in a safe manner. And so as I watched the brewery struggle more and more with sales early on, and thought about, talked to some of the employees there, about 5, I have to keep track now, maybe 4 or 5 full-time employees and a few part-time employees at Flying Lion. It was a small brewery. And I remember having a couple of conversations and being like really concerned that these people who live in the neighborhood of Columbia City, employed by this brewery in Columbia City, we're gonna have to be furloughed. And it's like, what can I do? Like, this is I'm in terms of circular economies and being hyper local. It's like, no, the brewery is a community space. It's actually more of a community space than it is a brewery. We could be making bread or muffins or whatever, right? We're selling flowers, and the point is that it's a place where people can come together and we support each other. Customers are our employees also, our community. So that was just, it hit me so hard. It's like, I have to try to do something. So I went and ran around with a mask and gloves and hand sanitizer, and I pre-ordered all my beer on the online options to show people, it's like, if I can run to 12 breweries and finish with 20 pounds of beer in my backpack I brought with me, and run 36 miles in the hailing, it was a hailing headwind at the finish coming back into West Seattle, I could still run 7 minutes per mile. It's like, if I can do that, then it is not that hard to support your local brewery. That was the point, right?
Cool. So you did a beer run that was 36 miles, 12 beers at the very start of lockdown.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, and that was satisfying. It made me really tired. It made me think about brewing, and it was good. There were a large number of local runners who ran to their little small satellite runs to their local breweries. some of them big runs, pretty large runs with a lot of beer. There were some people who did. There were a few friends who ran double-digit miles with, and then got a whole 6-pack. And
how heavy was your backpack?
But so I weighed it when I got back. It was 19.8.
What backpack were you using, first of all?
It was a 20-liter backpack called the Street Creek by Black Diamond.
Okay. And
durable backpack. Yeah.
And in terms of
worked out.
I mean, how did it was it able to insulate the beer at all? Or did they just...
I put them back in the fridge. I had that comment. A lot of people brought that up.
Okay.
I said, I hope you let those things settle a little bit before you drink them. Yeah, well, so I did. They're the owner of West Seattle Runner, Tim, and his wife Lori. But Tim was the guy. In this particular story, Tim gave. I started there, which is right next to Good Society. It was and I was hanging out with.
So not only support your local brewery, but also support your local shoe store.
I supported 2 local shoe stores in that run. I started at West Seattle Runner. This is a cool part that not everybody realizes, but I wore a pair of shoes to start this run that were 500 miles in, and I ran 22 miles or whatever, and basically they were done, and my feet were done with them, and I had organized ahead of time a curbside shoe drop off from Fleet Feet Ballard.
Okay, so Brian's place.
So I got Brian Morrison, drove up in his car. I think it was a van, right? And he pops out while I'm at Fair Isle Brewing, and he gives me a pair of On Cloud Stratus shoes, which are the most cushy on shoes you can wear. That's what you want for running 36 miles with heavy beer in it. That's the shoe, right? Or 50 miles on the road. That's great.
About 60K. So
and I got a pair of shoes dropped off in the middle of it.
What was your moving time that day?
I don't remember. It was longer than I expected, but I basically had planned out the paces correctly. And it was longer than I expected because I spent more time at the breweries than I expected.
Okay.
And the reason why I spent more time was that I was like what's the name of that game where you sit around in a circle and you say a message to your friend and then you say to the next person.
Telephone?
Telephone, right.
Yeah.
Basically, that was me, this run. I stopped at Counterbalance first. And they said, what are you doing? Well, they kind of knew what I was doing. Where are you going next? And to Georgetown. I said, tell Georgetown to keep it up, and we're behind them, and if you need any help, we've got some. So I went to Georgetown, and then Georgetown said, cool, tell Flying Lion. And so I had by the time I got to the end, I had 8 messages from 8 breweries to pass along. So I was talking to the brewers, finding out, and I asked them, what are you doing? How's it going? And it was just too much fun to connect. So I spent a lot more time, 4 times more time stopped than I thought it was. I think the whole run was something like 5 hours or 6 hours.
So that was a road 60K. Your longest before it was 50 miler at White River, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. So in May, is it May?
The next run.
Yes.
The next run was May. Yeah, early May.
So in May, you decided to do your longest run ever on road. Where you also carry a backpack with beer. So you did the Believe in Beer 100K. So you created, is that correct?
That's right.
And you ran from West Seattle to the ferry, which is in Fauntleroy, I believe is the dock.
Yep.
Gorgeous coastal area of West Seattle. And you take the ferry from there to Southworth. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, Southworth is on the Kitsap Peninsula, a little bit north of Gig Harbor, where I was filming last week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then I also had a 7 Seas. For next week's video, I drank a 7 Seas, which is your first stop on this.
Yeah.
So 7 Seas is a brewery in both Gig Harbor, and then they opened a tap house in Tacoma, correct?
Yeah, you got it. I'll just stay out. Keep going.
Oh no, this is your story, not mine.
No, I'm good. I'm just the editor here. I just please.
Yeah. So from what was your so let's break this down. So 100K, you ran from West Seattle to Fauntleroy. How far was that?
3.5.
3.5 miles. Okay, and then you jumped on a ferry, about, because you have to stop. It's a 2-stop ferry, but
45-minute ride.
Okay, and you get to Southworth. So from Southworth to 7 Seas, what's the distance there?
It's about half a marathon, I think. I think that's right.
Right. And so you went to Seven Seas, which is kind of in downtown Gig Harbor.
Yep.
I've done a 5K charity turkey trot
Pilsner,
there.
which is one of the best Pilsners in the state, maybe the country. That's amazing.
And you picked up a can of their Pilsner.
I got 6 cans there, Pilsner.
6 cans.
But I have to disclose, so this will tie into why I did this run a little bit and why I picked this distance. But I did just carry 1 of their cans.
Right.
And 5 of their cans. I had a photographer helping me out named Ian, who's a neighbor. He's a really, really great guy. He carried the other 5.
Okay, so you had 1 can.
I did carry my 1.
And you're using the same pack you did for the other race,
I used
right?
the same one.
Right,
I also
the Black Diamond 20 liter.
Yeah, so I actually switched. So I went 4 ounces. I got 4 ounces easier because I gave a 1 pint can of rye stout from my family's brewery to Gig Harbor.
So you started with you started with a 4-pack or
I just carried 3. Just 3.
Okay, so you went to 3 breweries. So you started with 3.
That was a last-second decision. I always intended to run with the basic necessities, a jacket, a layer, some calories. I actually had a stack of PB&Js.
So what was the Flying Lion beer you had?
Rye stout.
The rye stout.
You pick anything else.
Well, I mean, you guys, no. To be fair,
if you're going to introduce someone
and this is
to
not
Flying Lion,
a advertisement for Flying Lion by any means.
But Evan is the best stout in this.
Evan is my friend, and they make great beer. They have currently on tap. I picked up today. I was down there today, and I picked up the Idaho 7 hazy IPA,
which is I haven't even had it.
You didn't even know that was on tap.
It must be only 4 or 5 days old.
Right.
I was just there.
So I got a growler of that. They currently have the gin and tonic Gose, which is great. It's a nice summer light. They have the Blood Orange IPA, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
That's on tap currently right now, and I love that Blood Orange. And there's a bunch of beers that rotate throughout the year that aren't currently there, and then even Seattle Running Club, which we talked about earlier.
Oh man!
Every summer
we're a whole year we're not going to have this beer.
Right. So every summer, other than this year, we put on a race series at Cougar Mountain called the Cougar Mountain Run Series, and Flying Lions is the official sponsor of that race. And there's a Kolsch. Is there a specific name for that one, or just
Cougar Mountain Kolsch?
The Cougar Mountain Kolsch. So unfortunately, it's not going to be served at Cougar Mountain this year because there's no races.
No, I haven't seen it. Maybe we can convince Griffin to make it anyway.
So you had 3 12-ounce cans of
3 pint cans.
3 pint cans.
So this was a last-second decision. I thought I'd run with an empty pack and all this stuff, and I'd go around and I'd pick up beers and I'd run back, and I'd end up with a bag that weighed 6 or 7 pounds, and that was way better than 20. It was also a lot farther.
So what'd your bag weigh when you started?
So I went to the Flying Lion to pick up a laminated sticker or something. And Sarah at the brewery and I got talking, and we both realized that I should take a gift, and so then I put a bunch of rice out in my bag and carried it. It was probably 5 or 6 pounds. Okay. So basically, in fact, it stayed about the same weight the whole time.
Okay. So then you got to run across the I want to say the infamous Tacoma Narrows Bridge. If any of you have not seen or don't know what the Tacoma Narrows Bridge is known for, Google that. That's a scary sight. But you ran across the new Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which is the Safe Bridge.
Also known as the Safe Bridge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. It was great. You can see, you kind of come around a corner, I guess, off the Cushman Bike Trail, and you end up on this bike path that goes across. Mm-hmm. And Rainier is off in the background. It's gorgeous.
So your next brewery, do you have the can?
Yeah, I put it down here so it doesn't blow away.
So next brewery was Sig. Is this the can you picked up, or you picked up?
No, that'd be. I drank that. I couldn't wait.
So you went to Sig, and what did you pick up from Sig?
So I wanted a Baltic Porter, and they also had a really great IPA that I wanted to try. I don't remember the name of the IPA.
So you thought you were going to come home with 3 cans, you came home with more than 3 cans.
They were both crowlers too. Oh. Yeah. So.
So you gave a pint away, and you got 2 crowlers. Yeah. You had a porter and IPA.
That's right.
All right, and then so you took the ferry from Point Defiance to Vashon. Let's see, there you go. But you took the ferry from Point Defiance to Vashon.
You're good.
The mispronunciation IPA.
So we have some stout.
Yes.
Here, I'll pour some stout.
We just take a quick break. Evan, report our beers. We're now drinking the Flying Lion Imperial Stout or the Rye Stout?
Rye Stout.
The Rye Stout from Flying Lion, and We have the Backcountry Rise glass. What glass are you drinking out of? The Georgetown?
I'm drinking Georgetown.
That's all right. Cheers.
You can get the Imperial Rye Stout once a year, and it usually releases on the anniversary day of Flying Lion Brewing, which is in October.
It's October, so the
We'll
6th
turn
anniversary of
turn
Flying
six.
Lions coming in October.
Yeah.
There'll be Imperial Rye Stout.
There's
Right
an
now-
outdoor patio now because of the pandemic.
Yes,
Should be-
that outdoor patio. I was there today. The outdoor patio is gorgeous. It's a great place to drink. So if you're in Seattle, come down to Columbia City and check out Flying Lion. So where we left off, Evan was talking about his 100K run, the Believe in Beer. We were at Sig Brewery, around 40 miles or so. I didn't do this. You ran from Sig
You were there
to...
in spirit. Did you run anywhere that day?
I ran, yeah, I was in the middle of a 100-day run streak, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's true. So you probably went to Good Society and got some beer.
I'm sure I was at Good Society that day, I guess. So you ran from Sig in Tacoma to Point Defiance Ferry. So you, at that point, you're about 45-ish miles or so. Take the ferry across over to the island, to the Vashon Island. And then from there, you're about 50 miles or so when you get to Camp Colvos.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And so Camp Colvos, what beer did you get from Camp Colvos?
I got a few beers. So my favorite beer style is Baltic Porter, and I was surprised that I found 2 Baltic Porters on this route, which is rare. So I got a Baltic Porter, and I also got the, I believe it was the Moonrise IPA.
Moonrise IPA, okay.
And there might have been a third one too, which I think I gave that third one to the bicyclist who was with me, making sure that I actually made it, taking some pictures also.
Well, so you had photographers. You also had friends that were doing Instagram Live. I remember I saw on my Instagram. I followed through a couple times. You did Instagram Lives with people that were with you or not with you. Even Miguel from Ultra Health Phoenix.
That was great.
Live
Yeah, so
chat you in.
I'm glad you brought that up. Right. So Miguel is one of the most inspiring runners and just people in general that you can ever talk to. My one word of caution: say when you talk to Miguel and you meet Miguel, think twice about telling him what your goals are, because as soon as you tell him what your goal is, he is going to make sure that you do it. So you better be serious about that goal.
Yeah.
Right? Which I've learned the hard way and the good way. And it's a beautiful, positive thing.
Well, it's interesting because before today, you didn't know that I actually knew Miguel
No, I
from
didn't
years
know that.
ago. I've known Miguel for
And once you've met Miguel, you
years
never
ago.
forget him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I told him I lived in Seattle. I have a house. I have an extra room. I would love to have a community of Ultra House. So the founder and host of Ultra House Phoenix is Miguel, and now I am Ultra House Seattle. And whenever it's safe to have people over and host people for all of the amazing ultra marathons and road races too that we have in Seattle and the area Pacific Northwest, then yeah, people are welcome to stay. Come eat my plums off this tree and my apples and drink my rye stout and my non-alcoholic ginger beer.
And he might even make you some coffee cake.
Might
as
make
well.
you some coffee cake.
I'm not sure if you saw this on the table. I will eat this after the
So
video.
I talked to him on the ferry from Vashon back to West Seattle,
Okay.
which was
You're already at mile 58 at that point.
about mile 58. I had
And
stopped
you
at
said it was
Camp
pretty
Kolos,
hilly. The island's pretty
picked up
hilly,
a few
right?
It's very hilly.
Yeah.
Vashon's hilly. So I picked up a few beers, had a meat pie from the drive-through meat pie window, which was awesome at Camp Colvos. And I was sitting there talking to Miguel, and he was just like talking me up, getting me going to go uphill 4 miles from the ferry back to my house.
That's
Couldn't
awesome.
have been a better.
So it's your longest run ever. You supported 3 local breweries, including, at the time, the newest brewery in the state of Washington, Sig. You got 2 beers that were your favorite style, the Baltic...
Baltic Porters from
Baltic
both
Porter.
Sig and Camp Colvos. Yeah.
Right, and you supported one of 3 or so breweries in Gig Harbor as well. I know it's a tough choice to choose which
I'll just
brewery,
have to go back.
but there are 2 others. There's White Coast and Gig Harbor Brewing, at least. I'm sure there's more popping about. So yeah, that's amazing story. Your longest run. So I do like to end each video with 4 questions. I'm going to add a 5th because you are a runner. So let's start with the new question, which is, what is your most scenic beer you've ever had?
Yeah, pretty recently, which is a surprise. I've been in a lot of beautiful places with beer, whether I carried it in a growler, insulated growler in a backpack, or one time I carried non-insulated growler before those were a thing, and to some alpine lake, and like the lake was about 40 degrees, so I re-chilled the beer, and then that's pretty cool. But what beats all of those was this: earlier on this year, I climbed up Rainier on skis, and I had a can of rye stout from one of the first ever cans, because Flying Line just started canning during the pandemic. For one of the first cans of rye stout at like 12,400 feet on Rainier on skis. It was great.
I'm gonna be that guy and say Mount Tahoma.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Actually, I normally would say, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. No, you don't have to be that guy.
Yeah.
You should be that guy.
Right.
That's
and,
exactly right.
You know, I think one thing that changed in my life, moving here to Seattle and Pacific Northwest in general, is learning more about First Nation and Indigenous people. In Los Angeles, unfortunately, other than the Tongva, which have a very small plot of land in West Los Angeles at University High School. They have a hot springs at University High School, and that's it. And that's all people in Los Angeles know. And I think most people in Los Angeles don't even know anything about First Nation. But moving up here to Seattle, but the Pacific Northwest in general, whether it's Portland, here, Vancouver, Victoria, wherever, I think people are a little more tied to the First Nation, a little more tied to Indigenous culture.
Sure.
Whether they know it or not, whether it's the names of the cities up here, like Puyallup,
Tahoma itself.
Tacoma. So yeah, I think, and it also is important, not just now but always, to understand whose land we are on. And we're here in Seattle. Specifically, where we are is the Duwamish land.
Right.
And I think that's actually really important in this time to acknowledge that.
Do you know about Real Rent Duwamish?
Yes, Real Rent Duwamish. So
I don't know if you've seen this. I've only.
I saw you actually you paid your rent. I saw
paid
that.
my rent. I'm embarrassed to say that I have never paid my rent until last month.
Yeah.
But I am now, right? And the way that I've chosen to do it is the manner in which I interact with our land that is most valuable to me is when I'm trail running.
Right.
It's the most important thing. It's my greatest appreciation for where we are. So I've decided, for as long as I can afford to do so, I will pay $1 for every trail mile I run every month. So that's in a few days. I got to pay rent again.
Yeah.
This is a good month. I got to pay a big rent. I have to pay a big rent this month.
I think that's
I
great.
ran a lot of trails this month.
I think that's actually really great that you do that. And I think a lot of people in Seattle don't know about this, and outside of Seattle, they probably had never even thought about what lands they're on. And like I said, there's definitely a cultural shift here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's still not enough, but it's still something. And there's an app called Native Lands app.
Yep.
And you can use that app to
really
understand what land you're on and see who's been here before. And if you're on Instagram, maybe say in your post, being appreciative of being on that land. And so I think that's actually important to understand that. Your most scenic beer is a Mount Tahoma. Tell me about your first experience with beer. That's typically the first question I ask before the scenic beer.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So first experience was making a Sunday night dinner with my dad, trying to make beer cheese soup.
How old were you at
my
this?
choice. It's 15?
Okay.
16?
Yeah.
So we measured out some beer, maybe like a whole one can goes into
What were you using for the beer?
Budweiser.
Okay, so your first cheap American beer, yes.
Yeah, cheap American beer. But not Bud Light.
Yes.
Budweiser. It's a little more robust. Tasted it, thought it was like, this is extremely bitter. Didn't really like it that much. So it's actually, so that's interesting. That's probably pretty par for the course. Maybe not the soup part, but the better, more interesting story is the second beer I ever tasted was a craft beer. It was Bell's Two Hearted Ale, which is one of the best beers in the world.
And that's in the Midwest. That's in
made in the town where I grew up, Kalamazoo.
Okay,
I guess I should probably call it a city. It is. It's big
I've
enough
had
for the
Bell's
city.
Two Hearted at one of my favorite bars in Cleveland, Ohio,
Oh, cool.
called Melt Bar and Grill. They're a
Nice.
grilled cheese bar that has craft beer.
That's awesome. Well, that's not bad. Beer cheese soup, melted cheese
Yeah.
sandwiches, Bell's Two Hearted.
That's when I first learned
it's all
about
the
Bell's
same
Two Hearted
world.
was at that
Small
bar.
world.
Yeah.
Bell's Two Hearted is great. Larry Bell, the owner, has come to my dad a few times to take a look at hop harvest from year to year. My dad's a food chemist, and helped him analyze the hops in order to make sure that the beer came out consistent, and tasty. So the community and shared love of beer has always been within my second beer experience. Budweiser's all right, it's fine. It makes a great soup.
It makes good cheese.
Makes good cheese soup.
So I believe you've already answered this question a few times, but your favorite style of beer?
Yeah, Baltic Porter.
Baltic Porter.
Baltic
Okay.
Porter, I love.
So you
dark,
choose a
love
beer
dark
that's
beer.
not very popular, and not
Yeah,
very available.
Call me your beer hipster if you want. Yeah, it's true. Baltic Porter it's a dark beer. I love dark beer. I would say probably it's a stout otherwise, but Baltic Porter is a lagered imperial dark beer, and it's hard to make and it's rare. So it's kind of cool when someone cares enough to learn the history of it, and then also possesses the skills to pull it off.
Yet you somehow found two crowlers of it on your
I know, it's
100K run.
Yeah, so that's the only reason I made it through the run, probably.
Right. Question number 3 is, here in the state of Washington, other than Flying Lion, I know where your heart is. Do you have a favorite brewery or even a favorite beer of the moment? It doesn't have to be all time. It can be like, what are you currently liking up here?
Yeah, favorite brewery in Washington is Georgetown, and I think when I first moved to Seattle, I would go to Georgetown with my 2 growlers, exchange them, come back, and I'd get a growler of Manny's and a growler of 9-pound porter. And it was a hard time to pick. I had a hard choice picking between those two.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had a growler of fresh packed Manny's, I highly suggest you go down to the brewery and get one. It's a different experience from getting it out of a keg at a bar. Different than getting it out. They're actually canning Manny's now.
Yes, they are canning mayonnaise. Yes,
don't buy. Well, okay. You
buy
some
Please
Manny's cans.
support your local brewery. Support your local Seattle brewery.
But
specifically.
also go to the brewery and get a growler of Manny's. It's a great experience.
Right.
Beyond that, I also really love Figurehead.
Yes.
Yeah. And we discussed earlier a little bit, but if you allow me to go out of Washington just barely, then Fort George is.
So that's question 4. So question 4 is, outside the state of Washington, your favorite brewery or
specifically
breweries?
Connecticut Stout.
Okay.
That is which you can get in cans
from
in
Fort
Washington.
George. Yeah. And then, do you have a second favorite outside of Washington? Maybe something like Bell's, maybe?
Probably Bell's or Firestone Walker.
Okay.
The Firestone Walker story is interesting because the head brewer there was my dad's chemistry student at Kalamazoo College.
Oh, wow.
A number of years
And they
ago.
ended up in Southern California.
He went to Goose Island and helped them become what they are now.
Right.
And
Not
then,
craft technically anymore.
It was.
It was originally.
Yeah.
It isn't
His
currently.
name was Matt Brindleson.
Yeah.
And then he went to Firestone Walker and helped them really put them on the map too.
Right.
Firestone Walker makes really just amazing quality beers. Like every single recipe is dialed and balanced. It's especially the Belgians, especially the cellaring and the Belgian quads.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you for welcoming us here to the Ultra House Seattle. Thank you for having me try your homebrewed ginger beer and the Flying Lion and the Sig. Appreciate your time. And everyone at home, thank you for joining us for happy hour this week. Please comment below with what beer or drink you're drinking. It doesn't have to be a beer to enjoy good conversations with good people. And please like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and see you next week for happy hour.
Thanks, Jack. Cheers.